Wednesday, House Democrats passed a bill protecting contraception access. But that's likely to be rejected by the Senate. Now, abortion rights protesters are demanding more from Congress. This week, over a dozen Democratic lawmakers, including my next guest, were arrested after protesting outside the Supreme Court. California Congresswoman Sara Jacobs joins me now. She's also a co-sponsor of the contraception bill. First, Congresswoman, I'd like to talk to you about protesting for reproductive rights and what that feels like and what it feels like to be arrested, whether or not this is your first time being arrested for doing something like this.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was my first time being arrested. I felt like it was really important because as a young woman myself, these rights are being taken away from me. This is very personal. And I feel like it's important that we recognize that this fight is happening on people's bodies across the country. We are literally already seeing people die because they cannot get access to the health care that they need. And so it only felt right that I, too, was willing to put my body on the line to make it very clear that we understand the urgency of the moment and that we will not let these rights get taken away without a fight.
Minnesota Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor Matt Burke talked about his views on abortion last month. Take a listen to this.
One of the arguments that I've probably saw 20 times online today was about rape. And, obviously, they always want to go to the rape card. Rape is obviously a horrible thing, but an abortion is not going to heal the wounds of that. And the two wrongs is not going to make it right. Our culture loudly, but also stealthily promotes abortion. Telling women they should look a certain way, they should have careers, all these things.
Congresswoman, what's your response to that?
I'm horrified that this person is even in a position where they might get into elected office. But I also think that when someone tells you who they are, believe them. And in some ways, he's actually saying the quiet part out loud, that this isn't just about abortion. This is about control of women's bodies, of women's lives, about our ability to be whole and fully engaged in society and in the workforce and fully equal. That's what this fight is about right now. That's why they're also only 8 Republicans who voted for access to contraception in the House of Representatives, because this is about whether or not women get to control our own bodies, control our own lives, make decisions for ourselves about our careers, our families, what we want to do and what we want to be. And that's exactly what this fight is about. And I guess in some ways, it's good that they're actually saying that out loud so we can have that real debate. And so the American people can understand what's really happening here.
Earlier this week, a Walgreens employee refused to sell condoms to a couple based on religious grounds, which was permitted under the company's policies. Would the Right to Contraception Act protect people from incidents like that?
Yes. So what the Right to Contraception Act does is it says that you can have access to contraception. It's a right. Your doctor has to prescribe it for you if it's something that you need. And it allows you to have your own private way to enforce it if you feel like someone is infringing on that right, which is really important because we know that, we might have an administration that is not necessarily pro-abortion. And so you need individuals to have the ability to enforce some of these things themselves with that private right of action. Let's be clear, I thought we'd settled condoms long ago as something that was universally accepted as a form of birth control. I think that it's pretty crazy that we're seeing now something that the majority of Americans support the right to access to birth control, and still we have the majority of the Republican conference in Congress who won't codify that right into law.
Yeah, I just thought the abortion, the condoms and things were just on the shelf next to the aspirin. I didn't know you even had to ask or whatever. So that was all news to me. Anyway, Georgia just passed a heartbeat bill banning abortion after 6 weeks. And now people are going to Florida, which has a 15-week abortion ban. What does all this say about abortion rights in this country right now?
Look, I'm deeply, deeply worried and concerned about what all of these bans mean for people across this country. This is about decisions between you and your healthcare provider. And we're already seeing the impacts of this. We're already seeing women bleed out because their doctor doesn't feel like they can do the necessary healthcare procedure they need to do in a medical incident because they're so worried that there might be legal ramifications for that. And let's talk about what these things mean. The way you count weeks of pregnancy, I have a 4.5-month-old niece, so I just went through this with my sister-in-law. They actually count it from the first day of your last period, which means you have barely missed your period at 6 weeks. You probably don't even know you're pregnant. And so what we're talking about is putting people in these really difficult situations where they might not even know they're pregnant by the time these bans start, let alone the fact that what happens if there's some medical issue that happens in the 16th or the 17th or the 18th week? What happens if there's some medical need to do an abortion? They can't access that abortion care. And that's really problematic. And it's going to have, people are going to die.
GOP lawmakers are already introducing a wave of extreme bills. For example, Republican lawmakers in North Carolina proposed a bill that would authorize deadly force to stop an abortion. What can Congress do to stop these bills?
Yeah, Charles, I got to say, I am perplexed that in the name of being pro-life, they are literally introducing bills that would authorize violence and really hurt humans and fully formed humans who have families and lives and careers because they are so radical and fanatical about this issue. So look, the most important thing that Congress can do is codify the right to abortion into federal law. The House has passed that twice. Right. We are working with our colleagues in the Senate to do the same. But in the meantime, we can also work for protections for people in these states. So I have a bill that would work to protect reproductive and sexual health data from being used to prosecute people. We've already voted on the right to travel between state lines. There are lots that we can do to make sure we are providing the federal protections we can as we're working on codifying the right to abortion into federal law.
Congresswoman, we don't have a few seconds left here, but, you talked before about how this is personal to you. You have been outspoken about freezing your own eggs. Are you concerned about how the reversals on Roe will impact your own plans?
Of course, I'm very concerned. I'm very grateful that I live in California, a state that right now still has access to abortion. But that doesn't mean that my Republican colleagues in Congress won't try and do a federal abortion ban with no exceptions if they get into power. I don't have kids yet, but I'd like to one day. And I travel back and forth from D.C. to California every week. What happens if I'm, one day pregnant, stop in Texas on my way to California, have some issue and can't get the health care that I need? I mean, these things are deeply, deeply personal to me. And I know to all of my peers and my friends and my constituents. And frankly, I think it's important that we talk about it as a personal issue, too, that we talk about these things not just in the abstract, but how they impact each of us individually, because no one really is immune from these horrific rules being put in place.
I think you're so right that America should not have islands of access, but it should have full access. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Sara.